This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by DC's Satanic Panic, available now for order at all comic book stores worldwide. So please, 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 go and order a copy.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. My name is GMB Kamichuk. I am not joined by my regular co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. He's got important business to do.
Where is he?
He's doing stuff
Okay.
in the world. Instead, this is my scoop episode.
Super Pulp Science.
This is my scoop episode with Lyndon Radchenka, who has been on the show before. He is a long-time contributor, a sometimes producer, mediocre, and often a letterer of other people's comics, but a writer of many mediums. But lately, your focus has been comics. And I think it would be great for us to talk about a couple of interesting things that are happening in your writing life right now. And without further ado, but in order to characterize it in a constructive way for the dear listener, I would like to use as I am oft wont to do, a metaphor to describe what it is we're going to be talking about. And the metaphor that I'm going to use for what we're going to be talking about is the metaphor of the comet. A comet travels a great distance around the sun, and comets sometimes come close enough to the Earth that we can see them. And just when they're bright enough to see, we sometimes go, oh, look at that impressive blazing comet up in the sky. But we don't realize how far it traveled or what forces are actually at work to make it shine. And so I would like to use that metaphor to talk about your path right now as a writer, because if we check our solicits for upcoming comics, a person could right now search your name, Lyndon Radchenka, and DC Comics and Satanic Panic, and find that you've got yourself a gig, in the colloquial sense, writing for DC right now.
Isn't that weird?
That is weird, but not unexpected for those of us here on the inside of Super Pulp Science.
I was listening to our first Super Pulp Science episode last week, and I can't stand my voice in it. We were talking about...
Oh, dude, I've got the Kermit, so don't talk about weird voices.
And we were talking about how, it's the end of June right now. We're 8 years ago, almost exactly, Steven and I are releasing Infinite Universe, our first ever comic. 10 years ago this summer, we traveled to San Diego together as fans, not as creatives. 10 years this fall. I walked up to you. We barely knew each other. I said, how do I start making comics? And you said, read these 3 books. And then we can talk.
And you remember the books?
There's 2 books, not 3 books. Yes, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
Yeah.
And Framed Ink. I don't remember who the author is.
We have it on the shelf there. I've also forgotten the author's name, but I look through it pretty often.
Yeah.
If you're trying to think about how composition fuels storytelling, a great resource. Framed Ink. Yeah. 10 years, eh?
It's weird.
Yeah. So you've traveled a long way to burn so bright.
I thought you were going to say to burn some bridges.
No. Well, maybe. Probably. We both have. Let's face it.
Sure. It's actually one of my favorite colloquialisms to say, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
When we get to it.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It's so true that... okay, so for the dear listener who this may be their first episode, let's just very briefly have a rundown of some of your comics work that you've done as a writer, as a creator, as a letterer. How do you use storytelling as a job?
That's a big question. Where do I start?
Well, let's start instead with a story that I just remembered
Oh no. Okay.
about myself. That's the
Okay.
best way to
Perfect.
start.
Yeah, let's talk about me by talking about you.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about how you said you didn't like your name, and it rang this, or
my
your
voice.
name, your voice.
Yeah.
And when I was in my misspent youth, at university to get my degree in education, you have to go to schools and do presentations in front of classrooms, and you get assigned a sort of mentor figure, right? A person who's supposed to be there to guide you and help you along the way, and they observe you. And my very first lesson, which I thought went really well, I'm having the meeting afterward, and the person whose name will remain nameless for now, but there's a whole sordid.
Is this the person that you often say you wish they'd die?
No, different person.
That's a different person?
Different person. Yeah, different person. This person told me, the lesson was fine, but I got to tell you, you're not cut out for this job. I said, oh yeah, why is that? He said, and I quote, "I can't stand the sound of your voice, and I'm sure the students hate it too." This was my mentor figure's first comments about my ability to speak in public. So, you're fine.
Well, what's great about that story is it lets me transition into the number of mentorships that I have received in the last number of years.
Which also hurt your feelings.
Well, I was going to specifically name you as being one of them. So on occasion, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You and Justin, I'm a little sad that Justin's not here today because both you and he have played such a large role.
He deserves some props.
Mentorships, yeah, and he deserves his credit. And that was sort of the first large mentorship in comics that I received, not the last.
Right. Yeah, definitely not the last.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I think typifies you and is if someone is like, how do I do what Lyndon's done? I think this is a acquirable skill, which is you always are trying to acquire new skills.
Yeah.
And
when people give you advice, if you ask for advice and someone gives you advice,
yeah,
listen to it.
Yeah, and give it a shot.
The number of people that I run into who ask for advice, get advice, and then go, no, that advice is wrong.
Right. Yeah. Why did you ask?
Fires me up. Yeah.
Yeah. My first mentorship in comics is fairly well documented on Super Pulp Science, but I'll remind the dear listener that the first professional comics person that I ever showed work to who had like legitimate work was Laverne Kadzierski. And he looked through it and told me it's not bad for student work.
Right.
But, you've got a long way to go before you can get work in this business.
Yeah.
Such a deflation. I was the art director for a show at that time, and I showed him the work that I was doing for that, and he just ripped it apart and then went through it. He said, do you want some feedback? And I
tentatively said yes.
Tentatively said yes. And he went very critically and harshly through what was missing in the portfolio. And after a couple of days when I was done feeling sorry for myself, I then made a list of all the feedback, like tried just wrote it down. And the cool thing about how memory works is, of course, if your feelings were involved, you can remember it quite clearly.
Right. Yeah.
And then after a little while, objectively started to use it as a checklist for things I could improve.
Right.
Like, I don't think that bedside manner is a prerequisite for the advice being important, good, or constructive, if you're willing to separate that human part of yourself. But you have a good facility for that. You're better at it than I think a lot of people.
I mean, I think I just keep moving.
Right.
Right? No matter what the feedback is, good or bad, you still got to make things. You got to keep... There's a certain amount of... I think once you have a certain amount of faith in yourself, you can kind of figure out... You can pull apart the good from the bad.
Okay, don't jump over that. Once you have a certain amount of faith in yourself. So if a dear listener is thinking, oh, I want to do this, but I do not have a certain amount of faith in myself, how'd you do it?
Well, how did I do that? I don't know how I got to that point. But when I think about trying to explain that idea to a listener who's unsure, I think about that famous quote from Alice in Wonderland and trying to find the path.
We're all mad here?
No, she's walking down the road and she comes across a fork in the road with the Cheshire Cat sitting in the tree, and she asks which way she should go. And the cat asks her, well, where are you trying to get to? And she isn't sure. And he said, so then either way is fine.
Any path will get you there if
Yeah.
you don't know where you're going. Just momentum being a key feature. A lot of people in our orbits can draw
I cannot.
and do a fairly substantial amount of graphic design, which those two things, if you're trying to quote unquote break into comics, is a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So you were not deterred, and you went and found some different skills along the way that could help your collaborator, Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a long path in that if we want to work our way backwards.
10 years!
10
I was
years
thinking of Grow Point Blank. Dan, we know what movie to cut with this now.
Oh,
Gross
okay.
Point Blank.
10 years, man! 10 years! 10 years! 10 years! 10 years!
I was thinking of the genie in Aladdin calling out however many years
Oh, yeah.
in the...
Give you a crick in the neck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, sorry.
We're getting off track.
I totally derailed you. You're talking about where your confidence came from.
Right.
And really, you said that it was mostly that you didn't give up. But that requires confidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of it is if I'm trying to break down my own creative tendencies, I think I do a lot of emulating other people, whether it's professionally or creatively. I remember when we were first publishing our first Laundryman book, there were no captions in the entire thing. And I was asking for feedback from Scott Snyder, who, when we can talk about that whole thing after, but I was asking for feedback from him on the book before it went to publish before it went to print. And he said, the story here is good, but I think you could add another level of it, another level to it, if you added some captions that gave the reader a little more information on what was going on.
And so for the dear listener who is maybe a prose writer that's followed along in comics, captions are sort of closed boxes that tell you a little bit of exposition,
Yeah.
and then the balloons are what the characters are saying.
Right.
And so you can get the prose level insight inside the caption box. But at that time in comics, captions were out of favor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had said, after reading Laundryman and reading our first issue of There Was Another Life, that my tendency as a writer was to drop the reader directly into the action right at the beginning without explaining how they got there. And it was fine for making for an exciting jumping on point into a comic, but it could be confusing. And so I went back and thought about what sort of captions I could add to the Laundryman. And I've been reading Scott Snyder's comics since I was 18, and he's always been someone who used captions in his storytelling. So I thought, well, what would Scott do with this? And
Emulation.
that's how those captions ended up being the way that they are in that book.
Right. Now, what's interesting, though, to me is the emulation of function and form, but not content.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Your storytelling is very different than his.
Right.
Your
Yeah.
Story sensibility, the way you build character,
Yeah.
very different. But recognizing, like, here's a tool
Yeah.
that I could try out.
And using a similar way.
Yeah, using a similar way is a kind of a fun thing. And I mean, it's not, not rocket science in our solar system example.
Right.
You're just looking at what is working.
I'm just watching the larger trailing comet in the
That's right,
distance.
the brighter one. Yeah,
Yeah.
the brighter one.
The larger, brighter one.
Okay, so 10 years from you saying, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
To finally getting a solicit
Yeah.
with one of the big two
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
And I say finally not because now it's the finish line,
Right.
but this is like the beginning.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
actually year zero for you.
Right.
If you think about comics in that professional space.
Right. And what's crazy about it is that I needed like every one of those 10 years
Right.
to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's not there's no one in this business that shows up overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such perception of it. Like, I'm sure the same thing happened to you when you first got your Baby Metal book. People said this guy came from nowhere
Oh yeah.
to get this.
Yeah. You get hate, and hate mail also.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you can't wait. Just wait.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, there are no fans that love you more than comics fans, and no fans that hate you more than comics fans.
Right.
I feel.
But if we want to talk about the like, if we want to, do you want me to compress backwards how what each step led to?
I think it would be really helpful for people to know, yes,
Right,
the whole shape of it.
right,
But be careful not to categorize it as advice.
no,
Because that time already is past.
Right.
So whatever way there is into comics now is different than that last 10 years.
I can only talk about the way that how I got here.
Yeah.
And that was, we're sitting June 20, what year is it? 2025.
My goodness.
The comic Satanic Panic is going to come out in October. I was first informed that there would be space for me to pitch ideas for this book. Not an invitation to join the book, but I was given the invitation to pitch ideas to the book.
Right.
In February of 2025, which only occurred after 2 years of me contacting the editors at DC, sending them regular work, and saying, if there is ever an opening, please, I would love to be considered for it.
Okay, two things I don't want to leap over.
Yeah.
One of them is sending them regular work.
Yes.
So it wasn't just, hi, my name's Lyndon. I want to write for DC.
Comics.
Yeah, I have great ideas.
Right.
Please call me back.
Please. Yeah, exactly.
Right? It wasn't that.
No.
What was it?
It was, I have already I think my first email to them was, here's The Laundryman. We're publishing it in 2-3 months from now.
Here's
This is before this book was even out.
Here's a creator-owned, self-funded comics project, which is of a professional level.
Right.
This is where I'm at.
And then in all of the interim since then, it was first check-ins every couple of months or every 6 months, whenever there was new work. But it was, here is the newest thing that I'm working on.
Right.
Here is a new chapter of The Laundryman. Here is the next book of There Was Another Life. Here are some pages from 13 Horrors. Here are some pages from Hero Man. Here are some pages from Dire Beasts. Here are some pages from this. Here are some pages from that. Would love to work together if anything ever opens up.
Right. So what you're really describing is that editors are not going to find you in the world.
Oh, gosh, no.
You have to knock on their doors and show them what you're working on.
You have to camp out outside their door, actually.
Right. I mean, not in a literal sense. Please respect their privacy.
Please don't do that.
But they do have emails.
Yeah,
I do have emails.
I've often heard it be described as editors at these larger companies are under siege in their inboxes.
Yeah.
And there are so many things coming in and so many people that are looking for work that it can be really hard to finally make contact and make a connection with one.
Everyone has a connection who's in their inbox somehow.
Yeah.
Everyone is claiming a connection in their inbox.
Yeah.
Some of them are showing current work. Some of them are showing that their current work is always current, that they're always working on stuff. Mm-hmm. And a very few are showing steady improvement in that current work every time they turn it in.
Right.
Right. And I think if I can, I'll toot your horn for you here. I think that's where that 2 years really paid off. Is that if you were an editor watching that progression, it was like, oh, here's a person who is interested in making comics and they make comics.
Right.
Here's a person who is swinging for the fences every time they send a new thing in. It's a little bit different. The storytelling is a little varied. The kind of art they're using is experimental, or it's very mainstream, or it's somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
You're trying different stuff, different ways to tell different kinds of stories.
I freaked out, joined the army, went into business for myself. I'm a professional killer.
Oh, do you have to do postgraduate work for that, or can you jump right in? I'm curious about that.
But I think the thing that's easy to overlook in all of this is, as a writer, you have to be sending in new work to editors. But as a writer, comics are really expensive to produce because you're not illustrating it yourself. You're paying artists. So how can the average indie comics writer hope to be able to send in regular work if they have to pay for it out of their own pocket all the time? Like, it's such a money, and it's such an investment to get to that point.
Right.
And if you're a creative who, and it worked, I'm going to reframe this. It worked for me because I was making all this stuff anyway.
Right.
Like, I'm taking it to shows, we're doing Kickstarters, we're doing all of these things where we can recoup some of these costs that are going into it. And I have great...
And you're doing other work for money.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're putting your skills to work in other places.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Keep the lights on.
And, I've got great collaborators that I love to work with that are occasionally open to working for quid pro quo agreements. And you find creative ways to get work made because you have trust in each other, and and everyone is sort of adaptable and trying to help one another out. But for the, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that there are writers out there who want to work at these big companies, but they don't want to do shows. Like, they don't want to DIY their comics career.
Yeah.
They want to find a gig.
And not even want. Can't.
Right.
Don't have not only the will, but just the
time,
physical
the resources. Yeah, all of it.
All that stuff.
And I feel for them, and don't know what the answer is then, to find your way into that sort of job. Because...
But do you just want to tell stories, or do you want to get rich and famous?
That's a rhetorical question.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. It's
right.
Like, I think too many people who imagine a life in any creative field immediately imagine what they'd do if they were fill in the blank creator they admire.
Right.
And how they would do it differently if they could fill in that blank.
Yeah.
However, the journey to be that thing you can see from Earth shining so bright is so long. They have no idea how to calculate that trajectory.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say, I would have burned brighter.
Yeah.
I would have been noticed by more people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's disingenuous to the labor of one word in front of the other, one project in front of the other, slowly building a body of work that seems like you're not going to quit. And let's face it, the creative life is not easy. It's fraught with disappointment after disappointment, frustration after frustration. And so maybe what you really proved to those editors who finally got back to you and said, hey, show us what you got, kid.
Yeah.
Was like, he can't be dissuaded by the hard parts.
Right.
So maybe he can have the good parts.
Well, that's a Todd McFarlane lesson, right? He often tells the story about sending in 30 submissions a month, and eventually they just gave up and gave him a job with some low-tier Marvel character so that he would leave them alone.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure.
I'm not saying that that's what's going on with me.
Yeah,
that's the lesson, is to never give up.
Yeah, definitely just keep... speaking of mentors, Dennis Cooley, Manitoba poet extraordinaire, and writing mentor of mine, used to say to our group, all we can do is submit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what he meant was, just send the story in.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Did you finish?
Yeah.
Did you finish? And if the answer was yes, then submit it.
Yeah.
Right? You can't decide what's happening on the other side of that submission thing. That's never up to you. So just submit it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're going to keep writing stories, then you get to keep submitting.
Yeah.
Right? So, you say that you're a creative emulator
Yes.
Those are your words.
Yep.
In that, how did you find yourself working with, or wait, I'm just realizing now that, dear listener, in the interest of full disclosure, we talked a little bit before this about stuff that we weren't allowed to talk about.
Yep.
Because solicited books, before they hit the shelves from any of the big two or any big publisher in general, they don't want certain information to hit the stands, sometimes because it's speculators will buy up stuff, sometimes because haters will like ruin stuff too early, for many reasons which are not ours to control.
Right.
What are you allowed to talk about related to the book before I ask some follow-up questions?
So the solicit is out
Okay.
for Satanic Panic. DC's Satanic Panic.
And it's out in October.
It hits stands October 1st.
Right.
I need to double check on when the final order cutoff is. I'm assuming it will be the end of July. So all orders for that book will need to be in before then.
And so for the dear listener who doesn't understand that, comic stores who are the direct market have to get their orders in early so that they can get the total number of issues they want.
Right. So in that solicit, it lists the characters of the book that are going to be featured in the stories and the creatives, all the writers that are going to be writing and all the artists that are going to be arting.
Right. And because DC proper cleared that solicit, those things we can talk about.
Right.
Okay.
So it doesn't say which writer is working with which artist.
Right.
And which character that each of those teams is working on.
So we're not allowed to talk about that.
I don't know.
Oh, this
So
is the best part.
I think it's
because
okay.
you're new to this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is okay. Like,
Yeah.
I signed a piece of paper that says I can't talk about the content of the work before it's released.
Okay, well, I think let's use this as a learning moment. Let's imagine then that you are, as you are,
Right.
brand new to working for the big two.
Yeah.
And you've signed an NDA.
Yeah.
And you're wondering what you should talk about.
Right.
Here's my non-legal advice to you.
Right.
Don't talk about any of it.
Okay.
Right. I got into this trouble a fair amount of times
Right.
with baby metal.
Yeah.
Because what I believed, checked on, and was characterized as being okay to talk about,
Yeah.
later someone would decide, no, they shouldn't have.
Okay. So this is where I get to is once the solicit came out and my name was in it,
Yeah.
I then
That's
shared
allowed.
whoever I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm in this book.
Yeah.
But no one else. I went and followed all the other contributors on social media.
Right.
Didn't see anyone posting really anything about it.
Right.
But then, yes, 2 days ago, saw someone. So then 2 days ago, I see one of the other contributors has posted on their social media, I am working with this person as the artist. We are telling this story about this character, and also thank you to this specific editor for getting me involved.
Right.
So,
And so the caution here is just because someone else did it doesn't
Right.
make it appropriate.
right, but that post is still up, and they named their editor in.
Yeah, so then it's probably okay.
So it's probably okay.
Did they mention them, like mention them in there?
Yeah. And so at that point, I text one of the other more experienced artists on the book and said, can I talk about what character I'm working on? And they say, I think so. And then they say, I'm probably going to post some of my art from my story
Right.
on social media. And in my head, I'm like, please do. Please, you do this first.
Right.
And, the automatic response is you think, well, then you can ask your editor if it's okay to do something.
Right.
And so I've emailed my editor because my plan is to email a bunch of
And in
comics.
comics like this,
Yeah.
in, dare I call them, corporate comics,
Yeah.
the editor is your boss.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like when you're doing, we have said many times, dear listener, that if you're doing work in any field, whether it's doing scripts or comics or prose, hire an editor.
Right.
Well, that editor works for you when we're talking about it in that context.
Yeah.
In this context, the editor is also the project manager
Yeah.
and is your direct boss and supervisor.
Martin, where are you?
Budapest.
Ah, city of cathedrals. Yeah, I see it right there on the bridge of the Danube, kid. I kind of like to talk to you, you know.
Well, why don't you email me?
Kind of like a, one-on-one, kind of a face-to-face type of thing, you know.
Do it personally?
Yeah, I'd love to see, you know what I mean, kid?
Let's do it.
How you doing, kid?
How are you?
So I emailed my editor to say, I plan on emailing a bunch of comic shops about this. How much information am I allowed to tell them?
Right.
But at the time of this recording, I haven't yet heard back.
Right.
So I think I can talk about it.
But you know what you could do if I'm going to be... Okay, so my advice is for you, of you,
Yeah.
would be more cautious than
Right.
what I would do
Of course.
in the same
as always,
situation
yeah.
because I love burning those bridges.
And, you know, we have routinely come on this podcast and we say, I hate people who secret bait
Right.
their projects. Oh,
The
I
fake
can't talk
posting,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And
So, but
our
this is-
super secret thing.
So what we're trying to do is make this more constructive in that if you have been lucky enough to have the job,
Right.
these are actually real concerns.
Yes.
What are you allowed to talk about? This is not
Right.
not an iffy thing.
Right.
This is important.
Well, and you want them to give you jobs in the future.
More
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not a faucet,
Right.
or maybe it is a faucet, and they turn it on and off.
Yeah.
And you have your little cup of water,
Right.
and that's
My little
all you get
Dixie
to-
cup?
Your little Dixie cup. You get to sip at it
Yeah.
until it's done. What you could do,
Yeah.
but would be unadvised perhaps.
Oh, that. Yeah,
i-
great.
Is post the artwork that you purchased. Hey, I just bought some new original artwork.
Yeah, no,
Surprise, surprise.
I don't have it yet, but I am purchasing a page of the original artwork from my comic.
And a dear listener might say, wait, if it's your comic, don't you own that work? So just to make it really clear how the system works here is the editor hires a writer, they pair the writer and an artist together. If the writer and artist work well together, the artist will then provide some thumbnails to the writer. They will draw the original pages. They own those pages. See the previous history of the 70s to the 90s as to why artists are now allowed to own their pages. But since they own their pages, they can then sell them in the aftermarket. And
Right.
so those pages, uncolored, inked, and this is traditional.
Yep.
This person works traditionally, which is
It's great.
so amazing.
Yep.
Narrows the list, actually.
It does.
Narrows the list.
Yep.
You could share that work, but you probably shouldn't.
Right. And I don't have it yet. So I can't show that currently anyway.
Right.
But I think it's fine. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the issue.
Caution is your best course of action
Right.
if your hope is to be seen by the powers that be as a person who shows up to do the work,
Yep.
does consistently good work,
Yep.
takes feedback.
Yep.
I mean, and I know feedback that you got because we talked about it at the studio, takes that feedback, applies the feedback well,
Yep.
and carries on. You want to stick the landing, so
Right.
I can see why there would be some reticence
Right.
to...
Yeah. I mean, the dear listener, if they want to know which artist I'm working on with, they can look me up on social media because I've already said that publicly, whether I was supposed to or not.
Oh, I see. Now you're just being overly cautious. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so...
Well, like, is the genie out of the bottle? And it should be fine to say who's working with who.
Yeah, probably is. Why don't we do this? Do you have the solicit there?
Yes.
Read the creatives,
Okay.
and other people can make their own assumptions.
Written by Daniel Warren Johnson, Roberto, I'm going to mispronounce some names, Recchioni, Andrew McLean, Lyndon Radchenka, Callie C. Miller, Rowan McCole, and Kevin Scott. Art by...
Now, there's some great names in there, but can I just point out that sharing that table of contents
Right.
with the Headlopper
Right.
and Murder Falcon, among many other amazing things,
Writers. Yep.
is like,
It's pretty cool.
how does that feel?
It's pretty cool. Yeah, well, especially because I already know Andrew McLean, right? Because I lettered his Death Fight Forever book, which should be arriving any day. So when the solicit came out, I got to send him a message and be like, hey, we're sharing a book together.
Okay, so then before we go on this list, who else do you know from that list outside of the fact, like, they were surprised that they were on it?
I mean, I already knew that they were on it because my editor told me that.
Told you. But once you were in the loop,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so it was like, oh, I know them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because you knew them that you were in,
No, that's right.
right? And
Right.
it's, I think...
No,
it's-
none of these people were able to get me onto this book. I just happen to also know these people.
Right.
The only other person on this list that I had known prior to my work here is artist Riley Rossmo.
Right.
Because the artist list is Riley Rossmo, Gigi Cavanego, Andrew McLean, John McCrae, Rowan McCole, and Don Aguilo. Now, there is one artist that's in the book that is not listed in here because they were named by the creative that I already spoke about on social media.
Interesting.
So I think it was a late addition to the story is what I'm trying to piece together. I don't know. I can only speculate about
This
any of
story's still developing.
Yeah. I think when I look at what I know about this book, that the writers and artists are named in the order that they're working together.
Oh. As far as you're aware.
As far as I'm aware.
Interested.
Because I know, like, Andrew McLean is the third name on here, both written and art by.
Right. Yeah. Well, so that's a
And he's
good,
doing his own thing.
that's a fair assumption. It's a fair assumption. Well, what I will say about this is that it is a huge accomplishment
Right.
to have continued and persevered, but you do not get to rest.
Right.
There is no stopping. There's no in.
Yeah.
Every project starts anew.
Yeah, let's get to the real talk here, because I
Yeah.
feel like we've done a lot of talking around different things in the
Yeah,
last half hour.
I was trying not to out you on anything that would put you into trouble. So here's the
Right.
real problem. No editor is going to call you up.
Right.
You have to call the next editor up.
Right.
Nobody that you know in comics can get you that job because they're not your boss. That's not how that works. They can say he was pleasant to work with. That guy's not a dick. Oh, to my knowledge, they have no criminal record.
Right.
These are the kinds of things people can say about you in that business. But for the most part, you have to show the people who make those decisions the work you're doing.
Right. Yeah, and
And then start over.
and if there's a big takeaway here, it's you want to know, we can talk about the things that I've learned about trying to make it into Big Two comics throughout all.
And
of
then
this.
I have a sad face for you that I'm
Oh
going to
no.
Well,
Okay.
sad face.
It's that if you are trying to sell yourself and get a job at one of these companies, the only people you actually need to talk to are the editors.
Right.
It is not I cannot go to Tom King, I cannot go to Scott Snyder and say, "Can you get me a job?"
Yeah.
And I can use that example directly. One, because he gave me permission to talk about it.
Right.
And two, because he didn't get me this job.
Right. Yeah.
It was what had happened was, in reviewing my work through the Laundryman, I had asked him, "Do you know how it's possible for a new writer to get work at DC Comics?" And he said no. But I will send an
Here's the best part about
Yeah.
this. People automatically assume that just because you have books out from a company,
Right.
you have the answers
Right.
to how to work for that company.
Right.
Incorrect.
Incorrect. What he did was reach out to the editors at DC Comics and ask who is currently in charge of the anthologies that you let new talent come and try and write on.
Okay, I'm gonna put a little ratchet and creak open the space between the lines for the dear listener.
Yeah.
The anthology is a really important one because it's going to be short comic stories. It's going to be in a way low stakes.
Yeah.
If that writer was difficult to work with, it's only a few pages.
Yep.
It's a great way for them to now have a sample of your work
Right.
that they control
Right.
and own and get to have final say on. So these are all really good ways to vet a person. And also the idea that you could be handed the writing reins of a proper title, unless you're already super famous and amazing, that is not going to happen. So this is the way in,
Right.
to prove yourself. It's
Yeah.
the proving ground.
So he sent that email. It took a while to figure it out because there were people moving around at DC at the time.
Mhm.
People were changing positions and it was unclear who was going to be responsible for that part of the collection. Eventually we got an answer and he sent an email just introducing me to that editor, saying this is someone who, I would have to find the email, but essentially this is someone that I think his words were, dedicated to comics, something along those lines. Like
He's made his choice.
someone who said, he's done some projects this is, if you are in charge of this is someone that I would recommend.
Right.
And that editor then responded.
You can't scare him with the truth.
Right.
That's what he was saying.
That editor responded, and I sent that the laundryman.
Right.
And then heard nothing for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I got used to hearing nothing and just sending more work.
You all right?
No, I'm not all right.
Take it easy.
I'm hurt, I'm pissed, gotta find a new job.
I traveled to New York Comic Con to meet Tom Hardy on Arcbound,
Right.
which I'm not working on now.
No, what's great is like somebody right now is going, wait, you did what? Wait, you did what? Oh,
Yeah.
Lyndon.
While I was there, I made an effort to meet the editor in person. And at that time, again, we're talking a year and a half now at this point, they said, I know who you are, first off, which is great.
Yeah.
And, you know, when there is something...
You've cut through the chatter.
When there is something available, I will let you know. And I went, okay, great. And I went on my way and went back to emailing regular work and not hearing anything back. When I did hear something back a year ago, it was, hey, still nothing available.
Right.
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Great. And then eventually that email finally arrived that said, there is room for you in what would turn into this book, Satanic Panic. Please send us your pitches, which is not you're in the book. It's give us your ideas.
We're
and we'll pick one.
considering you.
Yeah.
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 And that's a really important part of that.
Right.
At that level, you're being considered to be considered.
Right.
So then you had to send in ideas that they liked enough.
Right.
To put money and time behind.
Right. But so to go back to it all, it's this, if you're going to try and talk to people in the industry, talk to the editors. They're the ones that have work, but also like you should still talk to the creatives. Like it's still worthwhile to talk to your favorite artists and writers, but don't try and get things from them. They can't give anything to you
right.
in that way.
Yeah, there's no secret, just the work.
And you have to keep emailing on repeat and not expect a response.
Actually, let me qualify that. There might be secrets.
I don't know what they are.
We don't know what they are.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
For us, there's just the work.
Right.
Right? Send in the work. Yeah.
So, I totally lost my train of thought on this rant, but the essential takeaway is you have to find a way to connect with editors of these projects. You know, and the easiest way is probably find out who's editing the books you love to read.
Right.
And then work from there to try and figure out their contact information. And comics is so small, you can probably, if you're nice to people, find someone who knows how to contact someone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And we've said before that, like, you get your first job any way you can get it. Doesn't matter if you're someone's cousin or kid or whatever, but you get your second job based on what you can do.
Right.
And you get your third, fourth, fifth, sixth job based on people who know you, knowing what you can do.
Well, it's so funny you say that, too, because I remember at the Blizzard Con in Calgary, Calgary Comic Con,
Blizzard Con,
in which you had a portfolio review with DC Comics.
That's right.
I remember us having a conversation about
a good time.
Comics at the time.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember you, because we were beside each other, our booths were side by side at the show. You telling me about comics, and again, I'm 6 months since my first book had been released at this point, saying in comics is an industry where everyone works based on merit.
Yeah.
Whether that's currently true or not, based on the number of big name celebrities who have backdoored their way into projects.
Right. But if you're that's a merit.
Right.
I mean, let's
Sure.
just call it what it is. That's not a merit that I hold in particularly high esteem, but it is a merit.
Right. But you get work based on your last work.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And that, I think that always stuck out to me because I just finished graduating law school and had gotten used to watching people not get hired for their merit.
What are you saying about the state of that industry?
Well, that's not just that industry, it's most industries.
Yeah. But yeah, you get based, if someone liked your last book, that is your resume.
Right.
And the last thing should be the best thing
Right.
that you were able to do at that time.
Right.
So you should be able to pass that book rather than any other email, card, or recommendation.
That's how you got your portfolio review.
That is exactly what I did.
You had a finished book.
I had it finished in my newly finished book. I glued my contact information, literally
Right.
glued my contact information to the front of that book.
Yep.
And did not follow the other submission guidelines at all.
Right.
So I would not recommend other people not follow the guidelines at all.
Right.
But I was like, am I supposed to get a portfolio of these pages? Well, here are the pages.
Here are the pages, yeah.
So I put them all in there, and myself and Scott Henderson were the only two people who got reviews.
Right.
Right.
Right. So it's a endurance game,
Mhm.
comics. If I was going back to my timeline prior to that 2 years of waiting from an editor, like if I hadn't had finished work already,
Yeah.
then there'd be nothing for that editor to look at,
You're right.
and I would not have a job.
And that editor told me that, because I was talking about, it was looking through the work and said, what characters do you see yourself working on? And I named a few, and I was like, I actually made this statement, I would think it would be obvious from the work.
Yeah.
Which DC characters I would fit best with.
Right.
And the editor said, very lightheartedly, but very seriously, because we had a fairly long follow-up conversation.
Right.
Editors have no imagination.
Right.
And he didn't mean that to say like they literally have no imagination.
Yeah.
But we get sent so much creative work.
Yeah.
We can't stop long enough to imagine what you'd be good at.
Right.
We have
to see
too
it.
much to do.
Yeah.
So show us so I don't have to imagine, is
Right.
what he meant.
Yeah.
And it was really good advice, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. But to go back to it, you wouldn't have gotten that review if you didn't already have finished work.
That's right.
If you weren't already making, and if you weren't doing it for free, then
Right.
they're not gonna pay you to do it.
Yeah.
And that really goes back to this whole tenure trail was, if I didn't have someone like Steven in my life, I wouldn't have this job. If I didn't have the mentorship from Scott, who was willing to figure out who the right person to talk to was, I wouldn't have this job. If I didn't have you and Justin
Yeah.
around as mentors, both in early comics days and on how to make a creative living, or we're not making a living yet, Steven and I, but like to run shows and have a table where we're not shoveling money into the pit all the time,
Huge win already.
we wouldn't be
It's
making
not just a money furnace that you burn it.
Right.
To keep it smoldering.
we wouldn't be making comics still, and I wouldn't have a job. Like if I don't come and ask you how to make comics, I don't have a job. If I don't go to San Diego with Steven and we joke about making a comic together,
Right.
I don't have a job. It took 10 years. And as you said, what it got me was a short comic being published by DC Comics.
That's right, yeah.
And nothing more.
So we were, make a long story short, I had an interesting time when we were in Toronto, but one thing that I've been thinking about since then is it's important that you don't get too big for your britches,
Right.
or too small for your dreams.
Right.
And this is something I think that you have done well. You haven't oversold what you can accomplish. You just accomplish what you can, show it,
Mm-hmm.
and then promise people that I can do things at that level, and then then try to overachieve if you can.
And keep asking for things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get the subset of creatives who won't ask for what they want.
Yeah.
Because there are people who they want opportunities and they want things to be offered to them, but they don't ask for those things.
So do you think, this is a leading question you have not been prepared for.
No, yeah.
You have not been.
This is new,
Right.
dear listener.
Do you think you deserve it?
This opportunity?
Just any opportunity. Do you think you deserve the opportunities you have received?
I think that everyone keeps telling me that I worked hard for this.
You did.
I don't feel like I did.
Right.
So
So you don't feel like you deserve it then? Feels a little lucky?
it definitely feels lucky, but I think any success has an element of luck to it.
This is my punchline. This is what I was going to say, is that if you feel like you haven't worked hard enough, but other people are saying you have, then you're, I think, doing the right thing. And if you feel like there's an element of luck, there is always an element of luck. There's not a single project that I have ever done or had published that did not have an enormous component of luck
Right.
as to how it happened.
Right.
Right?
I don't know if I've said it on this podcast before, but I've certainly said it in the studio. And it's that in my mind, if I can do something, it must not be that difficult.
We joke about that all the time. If a bunch of jokers like us can get any work,
Right. It can't be that hard to do.
that hard.
You're a psychopath.
No. Psychopath kills for no reason. I kill for money. It's a job. That didn't sound right.
I used to joke when I first started making comics that the quickest route to achieving your dreams in the field was find someone who's done what you want to do and do what they did.
Emulate. Creative emulator.
Honestly,
Creative emulator.
from the beginning.
Yeah. As long as the content is different, you can use the form.
Yeah.
It's funny about that because when I first started, I was very, very, started late in my own mind.
Yeah.
Had loved comics for a long time, had a comic store, had been comics adjacent, had been doodling and having, all this stuff,
Yep.
but never making the decision that I can or that I should.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating that I was sitting down with an industrial designer at that time. We were just having coffee, and this was his job was industrial design, and I was doing a little bit of freelance work for somebody else, and that's why I had met with him. Can you give me some 3D models? Can we work from my sketches, whatever?
Yeah.
And he said, what is it you really want to be doing? And I said, oh man, I want to make comics.
Yeah.
And he said, well, in our business, you sell your strengths and you buy your weaknesses.
Right.
So you should definitely make comics.
Yeah.
And everything you don't know how to do,
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay someone to
Right.
do or trade someone labor
Right.
to do it.
Right.
And
That's the model of our studio.
it's the model of our studio, right? But we're selling our strengths and we're buying our weaknesses. And what we do in the studio space and increasingly with the Prairie Comics Festival community is we're trading our weaknesses.
Right.
Right? Oh, I can do that and I find it fun and easy.
Right.
So I'll do that part of the job.
Right.
And you find this part that I detest
Right.
to be fairly simple and easy. So
Right.
let's just swap. It's throw them on from the train. We'll swap murders.
Right. Yeah.
Right? We'll just swap murders
Yeah.
and everything will go so much smoother. So going forward now, it has been months now since your writing was done on that book, right?
Well, I mean, we're late June, so since my writing was done, no. A couple of weeks ago, I had to send in revisions based on the art.
Because you're not that great.
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
I had to send in. Basically, the process of it was once I had an idea that was accepted, I was asked to send in breakdowns, which was just a brief summary of how the pages are going to lay out, probably to show that I understand how comics work, frankly. Right. Once that was approved, I got to go to full script. I wrote the full script. The artist then took it, illustrated all the pages, sent them back, and then I was asked to take the art and look at the script and change the script to better suit the art. So I sent those in.
And I don't think it's a tale out of school to say
That's what comics
this person had an enormous amount of comics experience.
Yeah.
So it'd be foolish for you not to learn from what they did.
So I sent those in. I'm now waiting to hear back if they require additional revisions or if those revisions are sufficient and it can go to the colors and the letterer.
So just to get into the weeds here a little bit, the edits that you're making are based on phrases or story beats that now the art has accomplished, so you don't need to say it, or something that the art didn't accomplish that you thought it should. So now, for clarity, you might add another caption or a balloon, right?
If I thought that there was anything in my original script that wasn't in the art, I would have added it.
Right.
That was not the case.
Yeah.
Actually, what I did was I lettered those pages myself. I'm not going to be the letterer on this comic.
Right, but just to prove that.
I lettered them so that I could see it.
Yeah.
So that I could see how the text went from panel to panel, and I could see where I could combine things, where I had the space to combine things or to move things, like if I need to move a text balloon, thank you, from panel 2 to panel 3.
Right.
Because there's not space in panel 2 now. Does it still work? How can I combine that with the text that's already in panel 3? I send all of those revisions in, and now I wait to see if it requires further or not.
Right. And important to mention, dear listener, that Lyndon is a professional comics letterer also with many professional credits. So that process of quote unquote thinking he might know better than the letterer is not thinking he might know better than the letterer, but knowing as a letterer that once it gets laid out, sometimes the space and the beat changes, and you can control space for time by putting a word in just the right place. And maybe he needs to change his words to fit that space.
Yeah. So I took that script and those lettered pages and sent those to my editor, specifically saying, this is not for the letterer.
Yeah.
They're much more experienced than I am, frankly.
Yeah.
Like both the artist and the letterer that are on this book are going to be more experienced than I am. This was so I could see it and so that you can see it. Because the editor, as you've said, it's helpful when they can see it. They're not just looking at a script.
Yeah.
So I send all of that in. We have to wrap up soon.
Mm-hmm.
I was out last weekend with my mother and father-in-law.
Bum, bum, bum.
And my mother-in-law turned to me and asked, so are you excited? And I said,
oh my God. Yeah.
It's weird.
It's so weird.
Because in the scope of DC Comics, this is like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This is so small. But in the scope of comics, aspiring professional indie comics makers, and this is what I said, it's an opportunity that's really hard to come by. And when I posted about the opportunity last week in some of the indie comics online groups that I'm a part of, one person specifically said, can you tell us more about how you got the opportunity? I think it would be a really nice success story for the community.
Right.
And, the words were not to raise morale, but the vibe was to raise morale, to show that these opportunities exist. And I've came onto this show as a dark cloud as recently as 7 months ago to talk about how there's not enough new talent in mainstream comics. And I think that's still true.
Here's a caution, young Padawan. Here's a caution for you. It's an old expression. Success has many fathers. Failure is an orphan. Once your book is out, the people around you who have not always supported the idea that you should be doing this will begin to take public credit for how they always knew you could. And having experienced this a lot in my own life, I can say you have to get a little place in your heart to put how that's going to feel. And it's different for everyone. For me, it's not a good feeling. Where everyone who was like, hey, you should probably get a real job for 15 years is like, I always knew you could do it when you're at the launch.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that is really difficult.
Yeah.
This is also me saying and breaking up with any credit that you're giving us as mentors. I think an important role you're already expressing that you're doing in the communities that you're in, you're the mentor now. Right? And so
we'll see.
To believe you have it all figured out is not the reason to help someone else figure out, right? You've made lots of mistakes. I've made even more mistakes. And when we combine those mistakes, right, into what not to do, it's helpful for people. And so Justin will tell you himself, right? We take no credit for anything that you've gotten because every thing you've gotten on your own merit with your own efforts, and you show up often, more often than we do, following advice, quote unquote, that we may have given you, will be like, oh, wow, that it really does work. Look at Lyndon made that work. Huh. We were only half true. That was only half right.
Yeah.
So please accept your own role in your own body of work. Make no apologies for it. Make a habit of not apologizing for your own successes. Make a habit, if you can, of giving yourself an attaboy once in a while because you didn't give up. And then get back to work.
So then, in that thought, before you give your final sign-off,
Right.
to bookend this, so are you excited? Question that I received. As is probably apparent from anyone who's been a long time listening to the podcast, and given what you just said, I don't often take credit for my accomplishments because by the time they happen, I've already moved on. How crazy is this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I could go back in 10 years and say to me, someday Scott Snyder is going to introduce you to DC Comics,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to get a job. You may never work for them again, but you will get one job. How crazy is that?
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
Right?
I still haven't really wrapped my head around that. Mostly because I haven't really talked to Scott since it all happened.
Well, and this is the difference between a dream and a job. You know, people talk about dream jobs. This is a dream and a job. You have loved the medium, and you have been inspired by the medium, and you want to contribute to the medium, and you have a chance to contribute to the medium on a large scale, different than independent comics, right? You get to be in every store. Maybe
If I can convince them to order it.
right if you convince them to order it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of amazing.
It's cool.
Right? And maybe one day I'll get to do that Daredevil story I've always wanted to do. I have a Daredevil and an owl story, Daredevil versus the owl.
I don't know anyone at Marvel, so I can't help
Yeah.
you with that.
Yeah, neither do I. Well, that's actually untrue, but I don't know anyone who can help me.
Maybe one day when my DC days are over, I'll be able to finally be the writer of a GMB Comic Chuck comic
Dun, dun, dun.
called The Year Away.
Oh my gosh. Dear listener, Lyndon has just ended our show with a shot across the bow because I have pages due to my DC writer. This is how I'm going to introduce the project from now on is The Year Away. I'm working with a new up-and-coming DC writer, and I'm really excited that he's lowered his standards enough to work for me. Dear listener, this has been GMB Kamichuk encouraging you all to join the fight and make comics.